Most of the mine transfer and the acquisition of the mine was covered in the EA. And so we were consistent with that document, but most of the environmental justice effects and the socioeconomics, for that matter, were captured in the EA permit transfer document.
Okay, but that was a deficient one, so it needs to be brought back up. Since this is a draft EIS, so the public has the right to bring that back up, because there were things that were happening before you got this far. The mine sale hadn't happened, and those were in motion.
We capture NTEC's acquisition of the mine in the document as part of the existing environment. We call it the baseline. And so we do capture that action in our document moving forward for the next 25 years.
So you didn't think there was anything wrong with the environmental justice community when NTEC said waive all past, present, and future liabilities of BHP? BHP can just walk away, nothing. So you don't think that's an environmental justice issue for the Navajo people?
Well, again, those issues were addressed in the EA.
But now we're talking about draft EIS. That's relevant. That is a huge, tremendous, especially when we just heard last week that it was going to cost $10 billion to clean up the coal ash. That just happened at another place. And we have 100 million tons of coal ash here. The same thing could happen, and the Navajo Nation would be responsible for that?
Frankly, it was a business decision by the nation to assume that liability. Or I should say NTEC, not so much the Navajo Nation. So that was at their discretion to purchase the mine with all of its pros and cons. So that was a business transaction decision made by NTEC.
Okay, considering that the Navajo people themselves were against this, the business decision, horrible business decision that was made on their behalf, the public can raise this as an environmental justice issue.
Absolutely. That's the purpose of our meeting today, is to elicit comments from if people feel that way. And
when you covered the socioeconomic environmental justice, what did you evaluate? What did you?
Well, I'll just give you the overview.
Okay, yeah.
So in our study, we follow, there was an Arizona State University put together a economic model that tracks employment, household income, business output, property values, and both for direct effects and indirect effects. So we track how the money flows out from the project into the immediate community and then into the wider state regional community. So we parceled out how the jobs and how the money and the revenue would be dispersed throughout the regional economy, if you will. That was the first initial portion. Again, that was performed, the modeling was performed by ASU. We take into account how the shutdown of 1 through 3 and the additional BART technology on units 4 and 5 are linked to the mine. So with the shutdown of units 1 through 3, you don't need as much coal as you did when all 5 units were operating. So we take into account how that affects the jobs and how it affects the regional, again, the economy. An interesting point, and you're obviously familiar with environmental justice. So Bill Clinton's administration passed an executive order where you must look at how a project with a federal nexus could potentially affect disproportionate, that's the real key word here, minority and low-income communities. And so this is a fascinating project for this, given the fact that the project obviously is all on Navajo lands.
Did you take into consideration Four Corners Power Plant has an existed 50 years, and what kind of economic gains has it been for the Navajo Nation? Did you take that into consideration?
In Chapter 2 of the document, and we capture historic and ongoing operations. So we consider that baseline. We use 2 baselines essentially, one with that and one with the new technology and the shutdowns of units 1 through 3, and then we forecast impacts in the additional chapters 4 and so on.
So your baseline, where did you start with your baseline? baseline? What did your baseline say? It's the reason I ask is Four Corners, the plant's been there for 50 years.
Yes, ma'am.
And the community has gone backwards as far as health-wise, health impacts, and even economically. And so now with this ASU study that you're quoting, and it's saying that, you know, that $2.45 billion will flow into the Navajo Nation for 25 years. And I don't get it. Where is that going to come? If it didn't happen the last 50 years, how are we to believe that it's going to happen?
I get that question a lot in these meetings, and our analysis cannot, the government cannot tell the Navajo Nation how to manage their administration and also their lands. And so our analysis does not look at how that money will be dispersed or spent by the Navajo Nation.
So was there any other analysis by any other school or institution that you had done on the Navajo Nation? Maybe somebody that's more familiar with the goings-on with the Navajo Nation, actually using real facts. And then even one just has to go to Farmington and Shiprock to gather some of this information. You know, to say that we're going to get $2.5 billion, that doesn't fly.
Well, the model that was used by ASU is called IMPLAN, and it's the industry standard for calculating economic effects for these types of projects, EISs in general. So we reviewed this document when it was in its draft phase, and I'm an impartial third-party contractor, and we provided technical comments for them on the modeling, and they revised the document and sent it back to us, and submitted it as the formal final technical report. So this is the model that